Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Bache. So let's just start the class in few minutes. Let all others join in. So students, shall we start the class? Shall we start the class, Bache?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So in the previous class, we were discussing about Security Council. We spoke about its veto powers and the permanent members and their importance and their relevance and how do they function. And we discovered about the critical appraisal of the veto power. And in today's class, we are going to discuss about functions and powers of the Security Council. So, as we have already discussed that uh, if we talk about powers and functions of Security Council is again one of the most important functional organs of UNO, and three important, or you can say broad categories of functions that are related to the Security Council and how these powers, which are enshrined on Security Council functions. So the first and the foremost is yet again maintenance of international peace and security. And this is what we have already discussed and we have already spoken about. That this is the primary responsibility of the whole United Nations organization. And yet again, this power is conferred, with the Charter upon Security Council under Article 24 of Charter of UNO. So, the Security Council in that text is empowered to maintain peace and security, as well as, you know, also this power is not absolute in its truest of its senses. It does have certain limitations up to which Security Council have to keep a check on it, right? So, again, from the very basic principles and purposes of the United Nations organizations and the UN Charter, Articles 1 and 2, right? They are provided that there is a need to maintain peace and security in the international community. So, how are we going to attain this international peace and security? What are the functions which are actually performed or actually, done by Security Council? So, the first is provided under Chapter 4 of the Charter that the Council should use peaceful means to settle disputes and should not use such means which could endanger the international peace and security. So the first question would be, how would the council get to know if there is some dispute amongst any member states or the nation states? So the moment there is some dispute, the council comes to know which is deemed to have threatened some international peace and security. Firstly, if any member, whether a party to a dispute, brings it to this matter to the Security Council, maybe there is some non-member who brings it to notice. Also, the disputant parties, or either of the disputant parties, or both, or like all the disputant parties, asks for the same for the dispute resolution from the Security Council, and so on. So, what actually Security Council does? So, what the council will call upon the disputed parties and ask them to settle their dispute by the peaceful means of settlement of the disputes that we learned in the previous unit. Methods of peaceful resolutions, right? Amicable settlements. The second thing, it may also ask for the investigation of the dispute. So, if there is a need to investigate or find out what is the international frictions, what are the issues that are involved, or if the Security Council is uh, given the power or given the authority that they have to determine whether there is whether this international friction may arise into some major war like situation or may endanger the international peace and security. So it may automatically investigate the matter, collect evidence, hear the parties, also appoint committees in order to resolve the dispute, right? Thirdly, uh, they have to, uh, after the next stage, maybe recommend appropriate methods or procedures to actually end the dispute or end the problem which is amongst the disputant parties, and also recommend terms of settlement, that what are the compensations, what are the recommendations for a specific settlement, who is responsible for what actions, right? So this is all done under maintenance of peace and security by peaceful means, right? Second aspect of this is by taking enforcement actions. Enforcement
Ma'am,
actions or enforcement procedures. Yes.
ma'am, can you list it once again?
Oh, yes, please. So the first aspect of this I was discussing is about by peaceful means, right? How to maintain international peace and security by using peaceful means. So the stages which Security Council follows is, firstly, they'll ask the disputant parties to call upon and amicably resolve the dispute. That is which we learned through negotiation, whether they want to opt for mediation, inquiry, arbitration, judicial settlement, etc., etc. Right? The second stage is investigation. We have already read about this in the previous unit. So this is the functional aspect of Security Council now. Powers as well as the functioning of these powers. Second is about the investigation of the dispute. So investigation is done by the Security Council. The task is actually given to the commission, as we have already read about it, right? And the commission is established, they collect the evidence, they discover the facts, and thereafter recommendations are made by appropriate procedures or maybe methods of adjustments. So the Security Council provides with the recommendations for adopting appropriate procedures, and fourthly, it also recommends the terms of settlement. So the specific settlement, maybe some compensation or maybe some uh, things that are to be settled, who will be getting who will be responsible for the facts according to the nature of dispute, right? So the Security Council, through its recommendations, decides the state's responsibilities. Yes, Kacha, did you follow?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Nehal, your mic is on. Any questions? So the second part of the second means to settle dispute, or to maintain international peace and security, is by taking enforcement actions or enforcement measures. So this is one of the most important aspect, which actually makes the council the most powerful organ. Why? Because whenever there is a breach of peace or maybe act of some aggression amongst the member states, or which something has actually threatened the world peace, you know, the enforcement action has empowered the Security Council and given the United Nations the teeth to actually deal with this problems or deal with maintaining the international peace and security. So, firstly, it has to determine that there is some action which has actually, uh, which has actually made some threat to, or there is some breach to the peace, or there is some act of aggression. So, the council thereafter has the legal obligation in order to determine such an existence of threat to peace or breach of peace or maybe some act of aggression. So what are such breaches, or you can say who will be deciding this, like whether some actions may not be amounting as much as a breach to the peace, or maybe some actions or some acts of aggression may not be equivalent to as far as we could call them an acts of aggression, or that actually could harm the world peace. So these questions are what are decided by the council. So the council actually decides when and how to explicitly take initiatives while making such decisions, and while making determining that these such actions exist which could actually threat the world peace, right? So similarly, who is deciding all this is again the big powers. So the big powers can take action, actually has widened the definition of this phrase, the threat to peace or the breach of peace, right? So in order to relate what are the constitutes of threat to peace, for example, is there any proliferation of weapons of destruction, maybe some civil war, maybe some famine, or failure of state, the breakdown of some states, or thereafter UN Security Council can impose such sanctions, such impositions against those sovereign states. So the council has the complete discretion in this actual matter to define and decide what are the acts of aggression, when and how there is some threat to peace, or maybe some sovereign state has conducted a breach of peace, right? So the charter explicitly does not determine these definitions. It is up to the Security Council to determine what are all inclusive of such, existing of such threats or to the international peace and security. So this makes the Security Council the most important organ, as well as through this UNO has given teeth to the Security Council, or this organ is considered to be the teeth of the United Nations, right? So how does enforcement measures are taken? What are the stages of taking such enforcement measures? Firstly, how do without using force, measures that involves non-usage of forces. So in that case, again, there may be forceful measures that we have discussed. For example, they have to situations for complete or partial interruptions of economic relations, maybe rail, sea, air, postal, telegraphic, radio, and other means of communication, and severing all these diplomatic relationships. For example, like the whole nations and the countrywides tried to sever their relations with China after COVID had occurred. So these are some of the measures that you involve not actually using force, right? Thereafter, second is about, for example, by using embargoes. Second method, these are the enforcement measures, right? And also, there may be partial embargoes, there may be complete embargoes. Again, there are various examples that we have previously discussed about embargoes, and how security, this is all organized by the Security Council, and on approval of Security Council, these measures are actually enforced, right? And then, about arms embargo, oil embargoes are there, their trade sanctions are severed, right? or the diplomatic relations are severed with few nation states. These are all considered to be methods that are measures that are used by taking non-usage of force. And the second method again is by taking the use of force. Though it is not adequately, allowed, the Security Council does considers these measures by usage of force to, uh, to demonstrate, to blockade, you know. But again, they have made it that the usage of military, usage of arms will actually be permitted through Security Council. The United Nations systems of using collective security systems presupposes that the conclusion of such military agreements or absence of such agreements is no guarantee that council will ever be able to apply military sanctions. So forceful measures, again, armed forces, using of armed forces is actually not enlisted and clearly provided. But these are considered to be inadequate, but still they are at times used. So demonstrations, a few high-end blockades, and that are operations through air, sea, or land forces are being done by Security Council. Then another major important functions that is special agreements. Then there is a military staff committee, and then there are joint actions. So the first, again, power as well as function of Security Council is to have, under Article 42 of the Charter, Security Council has undertaken that in accordance with such special agreements, in which are actually made to contribute or amount to contribute in some international peace and security, monitoring international peace and security, to make such agreements amongst nation states to regulate, or you can say provide in accordance that they will not be misusing their armed forces. They will be having assistances, having facilities for each other, and also they will have rights to passage, including the rights to passage. These are all agreements that each member will have to strengthen their relations with each other, and Security Council will provide for such agreements. And degrees of readiness of such nation states will be considered there, how strongly they accept their membership into the UNO. So these special agreements concluded between Security Council as well as group members, as well as Security Councils. So all these things are agreements that are to be made, that they will not be using armed forces. They will be abiding by the principles of international peace and security, and they will provide assistances as well as facilitate the right to passage. Right? The second thing is about the military staff committee. Right? So the military staff committee is again the most immediate and effective action which is actually taken up by the Security Council when there is a crisis, there is an outbreak of crisis, and it is impossible to actually deal with such a crisis, even if there is some planning or they have proper planning as well as staff to do such work. So the council is actually equipped with a military staff committee. It is like a subsidiary organ of the council. It The task of this committee or the organ is to advise and assist on all the military problems of nation states. So the plans for application of armed forces shall be made by the Security Council with assistance of this military staff committee. So the committee is basically consisting of chiefs of staff of the permanent members of the council and the representatives. So the committee have a set of military experts who invite member states to associate with them, right? And if needed, military staff can sanction Security Council, and after such consultation, appropriate regional agencies are established, and such regional subcommittees or agencies actually function in accordance to the principles of Security Council. The first thing that they do is again advise and assist the council on various military requirements as and when it is required. Also, employment and command of the armed forces, which are available at the council's disposal, and also regulation on armaments as well as the ideology of disarmament. The, this committee is actually responsible for deciding the strategic directions of armed forces as well as the disposal of council. Is it clear? Shall I move forward? Yes, class, am I audible? Did you understand this? Yes, class, are you there? Nobody is listening? Shall I move forward, bache?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So thereafter, we will talk about joint action. The joint action is yet again one another way out for enforcing or making Security Council more functionable. So when there is a failure in concluding any special agreement, or also even the military staff committee has to get did not understand the issue, or um, it has to get suspended, or it's not working at the moment. So the council actually is non-functional if these two doesn't happen. So then there is a need to have a collective action or a joint action against the particular nation state. So while we have to think that there should not be any force used, or uh, there is no body to actually advise or assist application of such force. So the framers of the charter had visualized such a situation that at times even the peacekeeping operations, the enforcement procedure, the agreements, as well as a military staff committee will also fail. So what will happen then? Will there be a war again? And who will maintain the idea of international peace and security? Then they realized that they had this vision before only. So under Article 106, they provided the provision for joint action of the great powers. So the permanent members of the Security Council, as far as these two ideologies fail, the agreeing on the special agreements, or taking military staff committee into action, then when these two do not conclude, then there is a joint action that is taken by the great powers, that is done on the behalf of the organization. So these great powers under this Article 106, determine the enforcement action. And enforcement action could be any, right? To begin with, even exercise its responsibilities the parties again can actually work accordance to the wishes and the areas of provisions that are in the declarations, and consult one another and also assist on occasional requirements to view such joint actions and what all is necessary for purpose of maintaining peace and security are done, right? So the above action, this action actually that we are discussing will cease to have its validity as soon as sufficient number of special agreements are done or they are being acknowledged and implemented. So since then, actually this thing is not actually happened as yet. Since not even a single agreement has been concluded, 106, Article 106 was transitory provision and still it is operative at times, right? So I rest my lecture here for the day. We will be continuing about the miscellaneous functions tomorrow about the Security Council, and thereafter we'll discuss about ECOSOC, Trusteeship Council, Secretariat in the coming lectures. So for now, let me start with the group discussion. So who are there for today's projects? Shall I call out the names and keep asking you the questions? Yes, Suchita,
Yes,
International
ma'am.
Maritime Organization. So can you tell me about something about maritime? What do you understand by maritime? What does this organization do?
Yes, ma'am. It is regarding the safety and security of shipping. The
Mm-hmm.
International Maritime Organization is responsible for safety and security of shipping and prevention of marine and atmospheric pollution by ships. And
Okay.
it was
Mm-hmm.
established following an agreement at a UN conference held in Geneva.
Okay. So yes, next Shubham Kumar, are you there? No, Subramanyam. So when does this assembly meet for IMO? What are the composition and members involved? Sudhanshu, Sumedha, Supriya, Suryansh. Nobody is there? Only one person prepared? This is very bad on your part, bache. What is the whole function of involving you otherwise? Yes, Tejaswini, you can answer. Suryansh, Sham Priyanka, Akshay, nobody? Vijendra, Darshan, Harika, Kirthan, nobody's there? Yes, Suruchika, you only tell me if you know.
Yes, ma'am. The assembly meets for every 2 years. The IMO consists of an assembly, council, and five main committees. The committees include Maritime Safety Committee, Marine Environmental Protection Committee, the Legal Committee, Technical Cooperation Committee, and Facilitation Committee. And it contains a number of subcommittees to support the work of the main committees.
Okay. So, pertaining to the aims of this organization, firstly, it is for the cooperation and exchange of information that are matters that are technically affecting any shipping or maybe responsibility of life at the sea. Also, to encourage the removal of any discriminatory actions and whether there are imposition of discriminatory, you can say restrictions by the governments, and also considering various matters shipping in concerning the shipping that might get maybe referring to any of the principal organs, right? And this also drafts international conventions and agreements and convenes various international conferences related to shipping matters. And it actually works and functions on the consultative as well as advisory capacity. So the role of the developing countries amongst, you know, in the world shipping. So it is decided and done by IMO. So it is having an organization that is an intergovernmental organization also. So through this organization, there are conventions to conventions. There are many conventions that have started up. That main organs of the again these are as told by the Suruchika, they are the assembly, the council, and the secretariat, right? So they deal with such exchange of information as well as things that are related that are affecting the world shipping, right? Anything else do you want to add to this, Suruchika? Anything else you discovered while doing the project?
The SOLAS Convention is regarded as the most crucial treaty regarding the safety of seamen.
Right. Very nice. So, anything recent this organization has done, maybe in the COVID era or something?
Recent initiatives that IMO did are amendments to the SOLAS, which upgraded fire protection standards, and the International Convention on Standard of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping, which
Mm-hmm.
establishes basic requirements on training and certification,
Mm-hmm.
and the prevention of maritime pollution, which require
Mm.
double hull standards.
Yes. So, is there any changes to the SDG, the Sustainable Developmental Goals for this IMO specific regulations?
Uh, the IMO is working on the 2030 agenda of sustainable development and its associated goals.
Okay, right.
Uh,
So the primary goal of this 2020 SDGD is about reduction of sulfur content, right? Sulfur content amongst the marine equipments. Okay, marine basically, right?
yes, ma'am.
That's it. Okay, thank you, Bache. Good work. Please get inspired through her. She's done a good job. I really recommend and appreciate such an effort. So please, all of you, at least take some pain and do some work. There is no point taking such classes. Already you're not learning anything otherwise. I don't want to give any moral or motivational lectures in this class, but honestly, if there is some activity, at least you can participate in that, bache. Otherwise, it's no use. We're not having any physical classes. There's no means to actually learn through some activity, right? So I encourage you all to please submit your assignments and please take active part in such discussion. We are I am not going to waste my time on repeatedly calling you out your names. Yes, anybody from group 4 who has prepared can raise their hands. World, this is World Meteorological Organization. Yes, Nehal, you can unmute yourself and tell me what have you learned in World Meteorological Organization and what is it about?
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, Bache, you can start.
Ma'am, WMO is a specialized agency of the UN that is responsible for promoting international cooperation on climatology, hydrology, and geophysics or atmospheric science.
So,
Its main strategic plans are disaster risk reduction, global framework for climate services, aviation meteorological services, polar and high mountain regions, capacity development, and governance of the system.
okay. So, anything recent you have come across? There was a climate conference that actually is actually taking place right now. Are you aware about that in United Kingdom? Have,
Not exactly, ma'am.
So, what were anything if you don't remember, at least try and research about it. That there is one climate change conference that is happening in the UK that is actually related to WMO. So, there are again
Okay, ma'am.
what
Surely I will research and tell you tomorrow, ma'am, for sure.
sure. So, again, what are the constitutes and composition of WMO? Can you tell me that? Yes, Nehal, or anybody else can tell me about its composition and members and when they do meet and what are the functions they perform. Nobody else is interested to talk. Group 4, Shivani, Shivani Panjala, Shiven, Shobita, Shravani, Shreya, Siddhant Kumar, Ranjan, Varshita, Snigdha, Soma Sel, Anjali Mohan Rao, Soumya, Soumya Reddy, Shri Veda, Smita, Srinidhi, Shri Ram, Shri Dhriti. Okay, anyway. So, as per the World Meteorological Organization is concerned, it was again established way back in 1878 through a conference where the conference was about the National Meteorological Services, and this World Meteorological Convention established a new organization in 1947. The main aspects are, you can say, constituents of this convention and this organization was to commence such activities in order to establish networks of stations and provide centers for meteorological operations and meteorological services and observations, also to maintain exchange of weather as well as standardization of meteorological observations, and to ensure such publications and ensure such statistics that are same all over. Also, how does its proper application on various areas such as aviation, shipping, agriculture, and trainings of meteorology should be equally applicable. And the maintenance of such centers and stations and promotion of such international cooperation amongst the establishment of such workstations is done by World Meteorological Organization. So WMO actually consists of representatives from all across the members, and they meet 4 years and set up various general policies as well as adopt regulations. They formulate executive committees that comprise of around 29 members, and they meet annually and implement such general policies, and they have a secretariat which serves as the administrative organ. So there are actually 6 regional associates which members discuss the peculiar regions, and they pick one region and then they deliberate and deliver occasional policy measures as well as adopt regulations accordingly. Is it clear? Anybody wants to add something to it? So anyway, nobody is interested. So also research about climate change and COP26, the conference that has COP26 that has actually taken the center stage in the UK and has been one of the most important, crucial climate science conferences, right? So tomorrow we'll wind up with the Security Council topic, and for tomorrow, Group 5 and Group 6. Group 5 will speak about International Telecommunication Union, right? And Group 6 will talk about WTO, right? And we'll discuss these two topics tomorrow in the group discussion. Please, I request you all be prepared and send me your assignments in time. I would really appreciate if you do it. And it is better for you only to participate in the class. This way, at least you'll learn something. Otherwise, it's just one-way communication and it's not worth it. Anyway, you are already lagging behind because of this setup of COVID, that we are taking your online classes. You're missing out on much of what it is to be actually you can grasp and learn in the physical teachings. So please do not hesitate in taking part in the class activities. I have taken the attendance. Thank you. All of you, please be prepared tomorrow. Both the groups, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, bache. Have a nice day. I'm ending the meeting now.